All right, it's Matt Sweets Staniszewski with America Period, and I'm here with Tony DeLost, who's running for Washington County, Pennsylvania Controller. First and foremost, how are you, sir?
We're doing great, Matt. Thank you.
Good to see you, and thank you very much for taking some time. I know campaign trail is very busy. I see a lot of stuff on Facebook and so forth. So you've been on like all over the place, right?
Absolutely. I've been hitting this campaign trail hard since almost since last year, basically. And I've been all over Washington County, at least to some degree, in just about every single precinct.
Nice. Now, and I ran for row office over a decade ago, okay? In your own words, what does the controller even do?
In my own words, what does the controller do?
I'm sure somebody asked you that, when you're banging on those doors and so forth. So,
Oh, absolutely. The first thing they say is, what's a county controller do? And I say, well, I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people actually do ask. They're not exactly sure what a county controller does. It's multifaceted, really. A lot of people just boil it down to being an auditor, which it's not just relegated as being an auditor. There's many other aspects of it. You sit on the executive board of the Correctional Facilities Board. You sit on the salary board, and you also are responsible for payroll, pension, contractual obligations and payments. Right. And the audits are done by third party and brought over to you, and you report those.
Right. You have to just review those. You don't actually do the per se audits, right?
No, that'd be a lot of work for one person.
Yes, it would be a lot of work for any individual, 100%. Obviously, April Sloan, there were some changes in the office. There's an appointed controller right now. Why are you running, Tony?
I'm running for Washington County Controller because I've been in this county my entire life, and I think everyone can agree that what's been going on with Washington County politics, especially out of the Controller's office, needs, in my opinion, a clean slate and just completely start over fresh and get back to what's needed in that office to get back to the procedures and do the job as it's required to be done.
Good. And going beyond that, like what's your vision for the office to begin with?
First and foremost, I'd like it to stop being political. It's been reported as such as far back as at least 20-some plus years ago.
Right.
I don't see that change happening at this point either. I think it's still being turned into a political position that's used for
Tony, opposition. I mean, if you really take a look at, last week or so, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff, drama in the media, back and forth between the commissioners and the current appointed controller. So
there has.
What do you think about that? How do you feel?
Where was it the last 22 years?
Well, fortunately,
it only happened during an election.
Exactly. So, what does that tell you, right?
Well, like I look at this whole situation, and I really thought about it more, actually, when I wasn't sure what was going on. But when you start hearing reports and you start getting people to talk about who they are, I really start to look at this whole situation, and I see this office was started back in with Heather Shetler was in office 20 years under a Democrat who she claimed at the forum she was a Republican, but she switched parties just to be in the office to keep her job. Okay, that means you sold out the Republican Party for the Democrat Party, which means you took a job with them, you were trained by them, you worked with them, and you were in office with them wholeheartedly for 20 years as a Democrat. Now, there's a Republican
part of the establishment, would you say, right?
Right.
Okay.
Now, if you're a staunch Republican,
right,
and a Republican gets into office, wouldn't you switch back to Republican that day?
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
Why would you wait 2.5 years?
Why would you switch to begin with? I mean, just me, I don't get that. I mean, I've been a Republican before I could even vote. So
right. I've been in situations. I'm in a union, Local 112, non-destructive testers union, and I know that workers sometimes will switch parties for those reasons.
Sure, there are instances where it makes sense, but
in this case, they were trained by the Democrats. You switched parties because they basically needed you to, but you didn't switch back when the chance became available.
Now, okay, so you're a business owner, entrepreneur. with you breed horses and stuff. Tell me about that, because that's pretty cool, actually. I need to know more about this one.
This is a wild story. I didn't know a thing about horses, and I was working in the oil field. I was supervising a wireline company, and this guy comes in. He's wearing a cowboy hat, and I said, "How you doing?" Nice. I said, "Where'd you work at last?" He said, "I was training horses at the Meadows." I said, "Really? What's that all about?" And we just started talking, and 2 days later, I owned a horse.
Wait, dude, back up. You're telling me 2 days later, after this, you bought a horse, and how's the business, if you don't mind me asking?
Within
reason. I mean, you don't have to share everything, but
it's a wild story, really. The first horse that we bought was absolutely terrible.
Okay.
It was absolutely terrible. It was almost to the point where it wouldn't qualify to get on the track. And they were like,
Are you serious? Like, that bad?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty bad, folks.
Absolutely. So I was like kind of down and out about it, but I wasn't like completely done, because I said I'd give myself a second chance on it and see what happens.
Sure.
So we went and got another horse, and that horse did all right. So we sold the first one and used that to buy a third one, and that horse took off. That horse actually was up for 3-year-old Pacer of the Year at the Meadows amongst all the 3-year-old horses. And
it's pretty badass there.
Not too bad. After the third try, yeah.
I mean, especially, given the short amount of time, that's pretty cool,
Yeah. Things took off from there. I think at one time I had about 16 horses down at the stables, the fairgrounds there, and off and on lately it hasn't been as involved. But
you're still in that business?
I still have the business. I still operate the name.
And you have 12 years in oil and gas, right?
Correct.
What kind of work did you do with oil and gas?
In the oil and gas field, I worked as a chem tech, actually, for a frac company. I also was a wireline supervisor for a while, and I worked as a non-destructive tester, which is NDT work.
Non-destructive?
Yeah. That's
what does that mean? Like, please.
So
I need to hear.
Basically, what happens is when you go out on a pipeline and they weld the pipe together, you take a radioactive film of the weld itself, and you look at the integrity of the film to make sure it doesn't have any pockets
or holes. So it's like
holes.
Quality assurance, safety and so forth.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And you went to All Saints Greek Church?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, you're an altar boy there.
Yeah.
I was over in IC, and you're also on school board, correct?
Correct, Ken McMillan.
Do tell. And I think that's part of the bread and butter here is because the budget's $114 million?
17, yeah.
Right around there. Okay, I was close.
Yeah, that's
Tony,
good.
I was close, dude.
The year before you'd have been
I
right.
don't even have my notes saying that part. But okay, so the budget is roughly $117 million.
Correct.
How does that tie into what you're trying to do?
Well, at the school board, we look over a $117 million budget. We get third-party audits yearly, and every month the budget and finance committee gets together to look at what we're spending, what we're going to look at for contracts, negotiations for teachers and whatnot, and salaries, and that's a lot plays into what the controller actually does, month after month, year after year right now.
Yeah, it definitely gets messy, especially on a school board. God bless you. I served 3 terms as a city councilman. School board, I would never touch. So, much respect to you and, what you're doing, just helping your community out and helping further education. I do have to ask, because I asked him as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Pat Phillips, he's running for office. His brother is Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Phillips, who's, obviously the clerk of courts. What are your thoughts about that, if I may?
Well, Pat did address that at the candidate forum, and he did mention that there are stipulations in the rules that say if he does get elected, they have to bring in another auditor or another controller to sign off and do the reports of his brother's office. My first question would be, well, who's that going to be? Is it going to be a cousin? Who's it going to be? We don't know. No mention was made.
No,
right?
That's a legit, and I respect that perspective. Absolutely.
But as far as anything else goes with that, I think that would be up to the voters to make that declaration if there are stipulations that would allow for it to happen. But that's up to the voters to make that decision.
Totally fair. Why else are you running?
Why else am I running? I think overall, if you look at when the Republicans took over office from was it 4 years ago or 6 years ago?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
There was a red wave
19?
roughly, like 6 years ago.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, it was a different party back in 05 when I was very active with the party. But,
Yeah.
doing the heavy lifting and so forth. But moving forward, I would say the wave was about 2019 or so.
That's when all the row officers, most of the row officers flipped over to Republican. And I look at a situation like that, and everybody can look back on it, everything, and go, it looked like there was a situation where it was like, whoever wants to try at it, go give it a shot and see what happens.
Right.
Okay, so Republicans got in. And it looks like some of the factors needed to, play out.
Certain candidates, they hopped on the Republican bandwagon at the last minute and was able to secure an elected position and later got booted off. But anyways, That's neither here nor there. How do people, donate, volunteer? Like, what are you looking for right now?
I'm not looking to take any donations. I'm going to self-fund this thing myself.
No kidding.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. For the independent office of controller.
Wait, Tony, let me back up for a second because, you have a lot of signs out, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're funding all this yourself.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, well,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but...
No worries.
Okay.
It's an independent office, and I thought from right off the bat, if you wanted to make yourself independent and separate from all other, then keep yourself separate in every way, shape, or form.
Nice.
So really, the only thing at this point that I would really look for, or if you could help, if you wanted to help me,
right?
May 20th. May 20th. Everybody everyone needs someone at the polls. May 20th. I'll need people that could work the polls for me, volunteer, reach out to me, just pass out some cards, tell them vote for Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel that's effective these days, though? At the polls, giving the cards out. I have mixed opinions on it, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Granted, you asked for them, but
right. If you didn't hit every single door and someone shows up and they are undecided, then that will get that person probably to vote for you. And it could even be a situation where somebody did knock on their door and they're still not sure, and they get another card at the last second. They're like, oh, you know what? I'll try this person instead. That'd be good. It might just be enough to really get you over the edge. But the bread and butter of running for campaigning and running for office is hitting those doors, knocking the doors, getting the personal connection with the other person to say, vote for me.
What are you hearing? When you knock on doors, what do you hear? Like, what's kind of the response or the energy of Washington County, Pennsylvania at this point?
I would say it's because there's so many candidates and because it's such an integral position and because of what's going on the national level, you tie that all together, there is such a mixed bag of responses from the Republicans.
Okay.
I've been told, get off my property. I'm never supporting Republicans again. And I've had people say,
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
A couple times.
Well, actually, back in 05, I can tell you, I actually had a gun pointed at me at one point.
Really?
Going door to door.
It's a bit much. Damn.
Swear that yeah.
Okay.
True story. But thank God they didn't do that to you.
Right,
but really,
well, somebody, something about Doge happened. They didn't like what happened, and they're like, I don't want any parts of the Republicans. Okay, I get it. But a lot of other people have said, I can't wait, for him to do more. Okay, good. So we've had a very strong Republican response for Republicans. Some people that might have been on the fence about things, maybe they're kind of falling off and going back, or maybe they were affected directly. I don't know. But I think overall, Republicans really like what's going on the national level.
Oh, there's at the national level, 100%. Here in the county, we have great leadership, and we want to continue that type of leadership. It just blows my mind that, people, they compare Doge to what's happening here in Washington County, which, as you know, it's different dynamic. Whether you're a school district or on borough council or city council, it's very different because your feet are at the ground level.
Right. Well, to some degree, yes. But on the other hand, if you're looking for wasteful, fraudulent, efficiencies in spending, then that's exactly what their office is for. I don't know that you're going to give those away to political reasons you don't like, which is happening on Doge, that a lot of people would say, like, well, that's not going to happen here. Like, we're not funding stuff in Peru and,
Right. Yeah. Washington County, we're not funding things over in Peru or El Salvador or any of those places.
Right. But as far as the efficiencies and spendings, there was a newspaper article that came out in January from a private citizen who made a concern that said they found out we were spending something like $837 per leased vehicle in the county when it should only be $537. That's a $300 difference. Around 50 vehicles, you're looking at $15 grand a month.
That's a lot of money. I mean,
right. I don't know all the details that she found.
Okay.
But if I were the county controller, I would look at something like that and make a response to it, because you don't want to leave those concerns out there for the public.
No, 100%. You want the public trust, right?
Right. So something like that, if they were to look into it, they could probably have an explanation for you that says maybe there's a service fee to guarantee we get those vehicles. Something. I don't know what it is. I didn't look into it, but.
What else would you look into currently with the county? If you were elected,
what if I would everything?
Yeah, well, no, I get it. Of course, you would look at everything. But like, are there other, aside from the leased vehicles, which has been in the media, it's been talked about. I'm talking about, other
specifics.
Hot buttons. Or is there anything you would veer towards? Or
I would say this overall. I think a lot of right to knows that have been filled out would have been things that the controller's office would have taken care of. They wouldn't have those concerns, and that's why those right to knows are filled out. Those right to knows, a lot of them get denied because I think there's a lot of personal information from a lot of the contractual obligations, and you can't give that information out. But I would say overall, what I would say is to look into the committees and the boards and who's on those boards and who's recommending spending in the county and who's getting the checks from that recommendation.
Awesome.
I think that would be a pretty reasonable request.
No, I would agree. Yeah, you're just asking for basic information, right?
Absolutely.
And communication and cooperation amongst the departments, right?
Correct.
Tony, what else do you want to add, my friend?
Well, I just want to say that Washington County has been Republican for a little while now. It's been since 2019, like we talked about. I want to keep that Republican mansion going strong with Washington County. I've been a Republican for 27 years. I've never switched parties like all of my other candidates have. Combined, they've been Republican for 14 years.
All the other three, all combined, has only been 14 years. They
registered as voting for 14 years.
I have a little bit of information on that. Coming soon.
I've been Republican for 27 years, never switched parties. I knew who I was. I knew who I was from day one. I had to live through John Kerry, John McCain, George Bush 1, George Bush 2. I lived through all that. And then we got Trump. And I'm like, okay, here I am.
Right.
I want to keep that going in Washington County.
No, I love it, man. Let me ask you this real quick, because, at least one candidate thinks that, and I have a master's degree.
Okay.
There's a candidate that also has a master's degree. And with that being said, what's your defense or what is your argument against, anyone can have a master's degree, right? Doesn't make the person.
You can have. I've been told that you have to be a forensic auditor, a CPA, have a master's degree, MBA, everything to run for controller. But that's only from the people that are within the party who have already picked who they want to support. And they'll give me those reasons. But you look at anybody else that's dealt with county politics that were just not political, but just there and said, this is a business admin position.
Right.
This is a position where you're not doing the deep dive of the audits like we talked about. That's all done by third party. You literally grab a 3-ring binder.
You're reviewing and signing off on. Let's be real, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So as far as people saying, well, you don't have this degree or that degree, I don't know that it's necessary. I guess you could say it's helpful to you, but it's not going to make you as the candidate.
I would agree with that 100%. Anything else you want to add? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a website? How can people check you out beyond just our interview here at America Period?
Tony Jacob DeLost on Facebook. it's public page. Everybody can look at it. I have my own Facebook page for Tony DeLost for
Right.
controller. I'm at the Cannon McMillan School Board meetings every time we have a meeting.
Dude, you had some crazy meetings recently. I mean, you're touring different buildings and everything.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that? If you're elected to controller, what are you going to do? Are you going to step down from school board or? What's your plans?
Yeah, we looked into that. And so I can't be on both elected positions.
Right.
So I'd have to step away from Cannon McMillan School Board. But that would be me in the county. There's 16,000 people in North Strabane. Half of them are Republican. We'll find you somebody.
Over half. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Just had to ask. I mean, in case people were wondering.
Right.
Anything else?
Just get out the vote. There's going to be a low turnout voting, from what I understand in this election. It's just not a major election. But if you really look at the positions that are up, county controller.
This election is just as important as a presidential election, in my opinion.
I'll take that. Sure. Show up and vote for me if you're coming out, right?
Absolutely. Tony, I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No, happy to have you as well. And definitely continue to follow us, follow, share, and subscribe to America Period, because we're going to cover every candidate, I can assure you. See you then.